Jack Harrison, a struggling single father working as a handyman in a small Florida town, juggles paycheck-to-paycheck living with raising his 8-year-old daughter Lily after his wife abandoned them years ago. When Jack heroically rescues a mysterious woman from an alligator attack at Lake Okeechobee, he's shocked to discover she's Catherine Wells, a reclusive tech billionaire who offers him a job renovating her family's lakeside estate. But her real motivation involves finding a locket containing evidence of her brother's murder 25 years ago. As Jack helps Catherine search the murky depths for the missing locket, they uncover dangerous secrets that powerful people have killed to protect, putting both their lives and Jack's daughter in grave danger. With Catherine's traumatic past colliding with Jack's uncertain future, they must confront deadly enemies and their growing feelings for each other, proving that sometimes the most unlikely encounters can lead to extraordinary second chances. Before we begin, write in the comments where you're listening to our stories from. Subscribe to our channel, it's free and you can always change your mind. Enjoy the story. The scream pierced the humid Florida air like a blade. Jack Harrison froze, ankle deep in the murky waters of Lake Okeechobee, fishing rod still clutched in his calloused hands. He had come here seeking solitude and dinner for his daughter, not whatever nightmare was unfolding beyond the cypress trees. The cry came again, unmistakably human, unmistakably terrified. "Help! Oh God, somebody help me!" Jack dropped his rod and sprinted toward the sound, his heart hammering against his ribs. The wet soil sucked at his boots as he tore through the underbrush, branches whipping his face. He burst into a small clearing and skidded to a halt at the shoreline. 20 yards out, a woman thrashed in the water, her eyes wide with terror. Encircling her, a massive bull alligator, at least 12 feet long, its ancient armored body sliding through the water with predatory purpose. "Don't move!" Jack shouted. "Stay absolutely still." The woman locked eyes with him, her platinum blonde hair plastered to her face. She gave an almost imperceptible nod before freezing in place, treading water with minimal movement. The alligator continued its ominous circle, closing in. Jack's mind raced. He had nothing, no gun, no proper weapon. Just the pocket knife in his jeans and whatever wits he could summon. The shoreline revealed nothing but reeds, mud, and his eyes landed on a hefty fallen branch. He grabbed it, testing its weight. It would have to do. "When I distract it, swim straight to me. Not to the side, straight to me. Understand?" he called out. The woman nodded again, her lips pressed into a thin line. Jack waded in, the cool water rising to his knees, then his waist. He slapped the branch hard against the surface, creating a thunderous splash. Hey, over here." The alligator hesitated, its prehistoric eyes swiveling toward the new disturbance. For a moment that stretched like eternity, it hovered between targets. Then, with surprising speed, it changed course toward Jack. "Now! Swim now!" he shouted. As the woman began her desperate paddle toward shore, Jack backed up slowly, keeping the branch between himself and the approaching predator. The alligator surged forward, its massive jaws opening to reveal rows of yellowed teeth. Jack swung the branch with all his might, connecting with the reptile's snout. The impact sent painful vibrations up his arms, but the alligator recoiled momentarily, giving him precious seconds to retreat further. The woman had almost reached the shoreline, her strokes frantic but effective. Jack continued backing up, his eyes never leaving the alligator, which had recovered and was advancing again with renewed aggression. He swung once more, but this time the branch connected poorly, glancing off the armored hide. The alligator lunged, its jaws snapping shut inches from Jack's thigh. He stumbled backward, losing his footing in the soft riverbed, and fell with a splash. Water flooded his nose and mouth as he scrambled to regain his footing. Through the murky veil, he saw the dark shape accelerating toward him. In desperation, he thrust the branch directly into the gaping maw as it closed in. The alligator bit down, splintering wood instead of flesh and bone. Jack used the momentary confusion to lurch toward the shore, lungs burning, muscles screaming in protest. He felt something brush his calf, rough like sandpaper, and kicked wildly, not daring to look back. His hand found purchase in the muddy bank, and he hauled himself up and out with strength born of pure adrenaline. He collapsed onto the shore, gasping as the alligator retreated to deeper water, the remains of the branch still wedged in its jaws. Only then did he look up to see the woman he'd saved. She sat a few feet away, her expensive-looking white sundress now a disaster of mud and lake water, her breathing as ragged as his own. Despite the ordeal, there was something striking about her. High cheekbones, piercing blue eyes that assessed him with surprising composure, given what she'd just survived. "Are you hurt?" Jack managed between breaths. She shook her head, pushing wet strands of hair from her face. "No. Thanks to you." Her voice carried an accent he couldn't quite place. Something European, refined. "That was either the bravest or the most foolish thing I've ever witnessed." Jack gave a weak laugh as he sat up. "Probably both. You could have been killed. So could you." He shrugged, then winced as the movement awakened a burning sensation in his leg. Looking down, he saw 3 parallel gashes along his calf, where the alligator's scales had grazed him. The woman's eyes widened. "You're bleeding." "It's nothing." Jack tried to stand but swayed unsteadily. Perhaps it was the adrenaline crash, or maybe the cuts were deeper than he'd thought. "Here, let me help." She was beside him instantly, surprising strength in her slender arm as she supported his weight. "My car isn't far. I have a first aid kit." As they hobbled together through the trees, Jack noticed for the first time the sleek black Bentley parked on the access road. "That's yours?" he asked, eyebrow raised. "Company car," she replied dismissively. "I'm Catherine, by the way. Catherine Wells, Jack Harrison." He studied her curiously. "What were you doing out here alone?" "This isn't exactly a tourist spot." A shadow passed over her face. "Looking for something I lost long ago." Before he could ask what she meant, she added, "And you? Fishing, I presume?" Jack nodded. "Trying to catch dinner for my daughter and me." Catherine opened the car door, revealing an interior of cream leather that probably cost more than his entire trailer. "You have a daughter?" "Lily. She's 8. Jack hesitated before sitting on the pristine seat, aware of the mud and blood he'd bring with him. "Look, I can't mess up your car. Just drop me at my truck. It's parked at the north entrance." "Don't be ridiculous. You're injured because of me." Catherine's tone brooked no argument as she pressed a button, and a privacy partition rose between them and the driver Jack hadn't even noticed. "Marshall, first aid kit, please, and then take us to—" She looked at Jack expectantly. "Lakeside Clinic would be fine," he conceded, suddenly aware of how lightheaded he felt. The cuts must have been deeper than he thought. As the Bentley pulled away from the lake, Jack leaned back against the headrest, the events of the past hour surreal in retrospect. He'd gone fishing for dinner and ended up wrestling an alligator to save a woman who apparently had a chauffeur. He glanced at Catherine, who was efficiently cleaning his wound with supplies from a surprisingly comprehensive first aid kit. There was something almost clinical in her movements, at odds with her elegant appearance. "You seem pretty good at that," he observed. "I've had practice," she replied without elaborating. After securing a bandage, she finally met his eyes. "Why did you do it?" "Do what?" "Risk your life for a complete stranger." Jack considered the question, then shrugged. "Someone needed help. What else would I do?" Catherine stared at him for a long moment, her expression unreadable. "Most people would have called 911 and stayed safely on shore." "I'm not most people," Jack said with a half smile. Then, remembering Lily, he reached for his phone, only to find it waterlogged and dead. "Damn. My daughter will be worried sick if I don't pick her up from her friend's house soon." Without hesitation, Catherine handed him her phone. The latest model, of course. Could he call her? Tell her you're all right. As Jack dialed, he couldn't shake the feeling that his life had just veered onto an unexpected path. Little did he know that Catherine Wells was not simply a woman with an expensive car and a chauffeur, but someone whose very presence in his life would change everything, for better or worse. What neither of them saw as the Bentley pulled away was the small, weather-beaten sign half hidden in the underbrush near where Catherine had been swimming. Private property, Wells Estate, no trespassing. The Lakeside Clinic waiting room smelled of antiseptic and old magazines. Jack sat on a plastic chair, his bandaged leg propped up on another, watching with growing discomfort as Catherine paced the linoleum floor. Her mud-spattered designer dress drew curious glances from the nurse at the reception desk. "Really, you don't have to stay," Jack said for the third time. "I've bothered you enough." Catherine stopped pacing and fixed him with those startling blue eyes. "You saved my life, Mr. Harrison. The least I can do is ensure you receive proper medical attention." Before Jack could argue further, the door swung open and a stocky nurse called his name. Catherine promptly followed him into the examination room, behaving as though it were perfectly natural for her to accompany him. Dr. Patel, a middle-aged man with kind eyes and efficient hands, examined Jack's leg with a low whistle. "Alligator, you say? You're lucky. Another few inches and we'd be having a very different conversation." "So I'll live?" Jack attempted humor, wincing as the doctor cleaned the wounds more thoroughly. "With proper care and antibiotics, yes. Alligator mouse harbors some nasty bacteria. Doctor. Patel glanced curiously at Catherine, who stood by the window, her posture regal despite her disheveled appearance. Jack caught the look and hurriedly explained, Ms. Wells is a friend. She drove me here. Something flickered in Catherine's expression, surprise perhaps at being called a friend. After receiving stitches, a tetanus shot, and prescriptions that made Jack inwardly cringe when he thought about the cost, they returned to the waiting room. Catherine stepped aside to make a phone call, while Jack approached the receptionist to arrange payment. That will be $687.50, the woman said, barely looking up from her computer. Jack's stomach dropped. His insurance had lapsed 3 months ago when the construction company he worked for had downsized. He had exactly $243 in his checking account, and that needed to last until payday next week. Is there a payment plan option? He asked quietly, embarrassment heating his face. Before the receptionist could answer, Catherine appeared at his elbow. There's no need. It's taken care of. Jack turned to her, brow furrowed. What do you mean? I called ahead while they were stitching you up. The bill has been settled. The receptionist nodded confirmation. Miss Wells has covered all charges, Mr. Harrison. I can't accept that, Jack said firmly, pride straightening his spine despite the throbbing in his leg. Catherine regarded him with a curious tilt of her head. Why not? Because I don't take charity, he said, lowering his voice to avoid being overheard. I appreciate the gesture, but I need to handle my own responsibilities. Something changed in Catherine's demeanor, a subtle softening around her eyes. It's not charity, Mr. Harrison. It's compensation. My carelessness put you in danger. These medical bills are the direct result of injuries sustained while helping me. Her voice became all business. Consider it a transaction if that makes you more comfortable. Jack hesitated, torn between practical necessity and stubborn pride. Finally, practicality won. Lily needed her school supplies and groceries more than he needed his ego intact. I'll pay you back, he said, his jaw set. Catherine merely smiled, a small, enigmatic curve of her lips. If you insist. Outside the clinic, the black Bentley waited like a sleek panther. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink that reflected off the car's polished surface. Where can we take you? Catherine asked as Marshall, the stoic chauffeur, held the door open. I need to pick up my daughter at her friend's house, then get my truck from the lake. Catherine nodded to Marshall, who closed the door after they entered and returned to the driver's seat. As they drove through town, Jack couldn't help noticing how out of place the luxury vehicle looked among the modest homes and businesses of Lake Placid, Florida. Heads turned as they passed, and he slumped slightly in his seat, imagining the gossip that would inevitably spread. So what do you do, Mr. Harrison? Catherine asked, breaking the silence. Jack, he corrected. Construction, mostly. I was a project manager for coastal builders until the downsizing. Now I pick up whatever work I can find. He paused, then added with a hint of pride, I'm pretty good with my hands. Carpentry, electrical, plumbing, I can fix most things. A useful skill set, Catherine remarked. And your daughter's mother? Jack's expression tightened. She left 4 years ago. Said small-town life was suffocating her. He looked out the window, jaw clenched. She's in California now. Calls Lily on birthdays sometimes. Catherine nodded, asking no further questions about that particular topic. And you? Jack asked, eager to shift attention away from himself. What brings a woman with a Bentley and a chauffeur to a secluded lake in Central Florida? Catherine's fingers traced an invisible pattern on the leather seat. Business, partially. My company is considering some investments in the area. She hesitated. But as I mentioned earlier, I was also looking for something personal. Jack waited for her to elaborate, but she turned to watch the scenery instead, effectively closing that line of conversation. They arrived at a small, well-kept house with bicycles in the yard. This is it, Jack said. I'll just be a minute. I'll come with you, Catherine announced, already opening her door before Marshall could reach it. Seeing Jack's surprise, she added, I'd like to meet the daughter of the man who risked his life today. The door was opened by Melissa Ortiz, a kind-eyed woman who ran the town's only bakery and whose daughter was Lily's best friend. Her eyes widened almost comically as she took in Jack's bandaged leg and his glamorous companion. Jack, what happened to you? Minor fishing accident, he deflected, not wanting the story to spread just yet. Is Lily ready to go? Before Melissa could answer, a high-pitched squeal came from inside, and a small whirlwind with dark pigtails launched herself at Jack. He caught her with a slight grimace as the impact jostled his injured leg. "Daddy, you're late. We made cookies and played wizard school and—" Lily's excited chatter halted abruptly as she noticed Catherine. Her green eyes, so like her father's, widened with curiosity. "Who are you? You look like Elsa, but with shorter hair." Jack smothered a laugh as Catherine blinked in surprise at being compared to a Disney character. "Lily, this is Ms. Wells. She, gave me a ride after my truck had some trouble." Catherine extended her hand with surprising formality to the 8-year-old. "Pleased to meet you, Miss Harrison. You can call me Catherine." Lily shook the offered hand with exaggerated gravity, clearly delighted by the adult treatment. "You're very pretty," she declared. "Are you Daddy's girlfriend?" Jack nearly choked. "Lily, Ms. Wells we just met. She was just helping me out." Catherine, to his surprise, appeared more amused than offended. "Your father did me a great service today," she told Lily. "He's quite the hero." Lily beamed, looking up at Jack with adoration that made his chest ache with love and responsibility. "Yeah, he's the best daddy ever." After saying goodbye to Melissa and promising Lily's friend Emma a playdate soon, they returned to the Bentley. Lily's eyes grew round as saucers at the luxury vehicle. "It's like a spaceship," she whispered loudly, running her fingers reverently over the leather seats. Jack watched nervously, afraid she might stain or damage something. But Catherine seemed completely at ease with the child's exploration. In fact, for the first time since he'd met her, Catherine Wells looked genuinely relaxed, her smile reaching her eyes as she answered Lily's rapid-fire questions about the car's features. They retrieved Jack's battered pickup from the lake access point, and he transferred his fishing gear from the Bentley's trunk, feeling increasingly awkward about the stark contrast between his life and Catherine's obvious wealth. "Thank you again," he said stiffly as Lily climbed into his truck, still chattering excitedly about the princess car. Catherine handed him a business card, cream-colored and minimalist with just a name and phone number embossed in silver. "Call me tomorrow. I might have a proposition for you." "A proposition?" Jack frowned. "A job offer," she clarified. "Nothing inappropriate, I assure you. My estate needs some repairs, and I prefer to hire someone I know is competent." Before Jack could respond, she slipped back into the Bentley. The window lowered and she added, "Besides, you did say you wanted to repay me for the medical bills." The window glided up and the luxury car pulled away, leaving Jack standing in the dusty parking lot, the business card heavy in his hand. "Daddy?" Lily tugged at his shirt. "Is the princess lady going to visit us again?" Jack stared at the disappearing taillights, a strange mixture of anticipation and unease settling in his stomach. "I don't know, sweetheart. Maybe." That night, after tucking Lily into bed in their small but tidy trailer, Jack sat at the kitchen table, turning Catherine's card over and over in his fingers. His laptop was open to a search page, and what he saw there made his breath catch. Catherine Wells wasn't just wealthy. She was Catherine Wells, the reclusive CEO of Wells Technologies, a global tech empire. Forbes estimated her net worth at over $30 billion, making her one of the richest women in the world. Yet she was notoriously private. The most recent photo available was from 3 years ago. Jack leaned back in his chair, running a hand through his hair. What was a tech billionaire doing alone at a remote Florida lake? What had she lost there? And more importantly, what did she really want from a struggling single father with nothing to offer but calloused hands and a determination to survive? The question swirled in his mind as he finally turned off the light and went to bed. Whatever game Catherine Wells was playing, Jack couldn't shake the feeling that he and Lily had just been drawn into something much bigger than a chance encounter and an alligator attack. Something that might change their lives forever, if he dared to pick up the phone and call that number. Morning light filtered through the thin curtains of Jack's trailer, casting mottled patterns across the kitchen table where he sat nursing a cup of coffee. Catherine's business card lay before him, the silver embossing catching the light with each small movement of his hand. He hadn't slept well, his dreams populated by alligators and mysterious blue-eyed women. The alarm on his phone chimed, a reminder that he needed to get Lily to school. He'd have to decide about calling Catherine later. "Lily pad, let's go, kiddo." "You'll be late," he called, tucking the card into his shirt pocket. Lily emerged from her room, school backpack dwarfing her small frame, her hair only partially brushed. "Is your leg better, Daddy? Can I see the stitches?" Jack smiled, reaching for the brush on the counter. "It's fine, just sore. And no, you cannot see the stitches. Dr. Patel said to keep it covered, remember?" As he finished brushing her hair, Lily asked the question he'd been dreading. Are we going to see the princess lady again? Emma says her mom told her the princess lady is actually super rich and famous. Jack sighed. News traveled fast in small towns. Her name is Miss Wells Lily, and I don't know if we'll see her again. But you kept her card, Lily said with the unnerving observation skills of children. I saw you looking at it. That's because she offered me some work, Jack admitted, helping her into her jacket. Now come on, we're going to be late. The morning school run was chaotic as usual. Lily remembering a permission slip that needed signing at the last minute. Jack nearly forgetting to pack her lunch. By the time he dropped her off, kissing the top of her head and reminding her that Mrs. Ortiz would pick her up after school, he was already exhausted. He drove to the job site where he'd been working for the past few weeks. A kitchen remodel that was almost complete. The work was good, but temporary, and his next gig wasn't lined up yet. Usually this would fill him with anxiety, but today, the cream-colored card in his pocket represented a potential solution. Morning, Harrison, called Mac, the project foreman, as Jack entered through the garage. And how's the leg? Heard you had a run-in with one of our local reptiles, Jack grimaced. News travels fast. It's fine, just a scratch. That's not what I heard, Mac said, lowering his voice though they were alone. Heard you were playing hero for some fancy lady who showed up in a Bentley. That true? It wasn't like that, Jack said, focusing on arranging his tools. Just in the right place at the right time. Mac looked skeptical but dropped the subject as the homeowners arrived to check on the progress. By lunchtime, Jack's leg was throbbing despite the painkillers, and he'd made his decision. Finding privacy in his truck, he finally pulled out the business card and dialed the number. The call was answered on the second ring by a crisp, professional voice. Miss Wells' office. This is Jack Harrison. Catherine Wells asked me to call her about a job. One moment, Mr. Harrison. The brief hold was filled with classical music that made Jack feel even more out of place. Then Catherine's voice came on the line, confident and clear. Mr. Harrison, I was beginning to think you wouldn't call. Had to get my daughter to school, he said, surprised by how defensive he sounded. Of course. How is your leg? Fine. Look, Miss Wells, Catherine, please. Catherine, he corrected, about this job. I appreciate the offer, but I need to know what I'm getting into. Completely understandable. Her tone was businesslike. I have an estate about 20 miles north of Lake Placid that requires some repairs and renovation. The previous contractor left the job unfinished, and I need someone reliable to complete it. Given what I witnessed yesterday, you strike me as both capable and trustworthy. What kind of work are we talking about? Various projects, structural repairs to the boathouse, some electrical work in the main house, replacement of the dock. I'd prefer to discuss the details in person. Are you available to come by this afternoon for a tour? Jack thought about his schedule. The kitchen job only needed finishing touches that could wait until tomorrow. I can be there at 3. Excellent. I'll text you the address. The gate code is 1922. After ending the call, Jack sat staring at his phone, wondering what he'd just gotten himself into. The job sounded legitimate enough, but something about Catherine Wells made him uneasy. Or perhaps it was his own reaction to her that unsettled him. At 3 o'clock sharp, Jack pulled up to a wrought iron gate set into a high stone wall covered with flowering vines. The property beyond was hidden by dense tropical foliage. He entered the code and the gate swung open silently, revealing a winding drive flanked by royal palms. As he followed the driveway's curves, Jack's jaw dropped. He'd expected something impressive, but the estate that came into view exceeded anything he'd imagined. A sprawling Mediterranean-style mansion stood on elevated ground, its pale stone walls and terracotta roof gleaming in the afternoon sun. Perfectly manicured lawns sloped down to the lakeshore, where he could see a boathouse and private dock. It wasn't ostentatious by billionaire standards. No gold fixtures or marble statues, but the quality of every visible detail spoke of immense wealth tastefully applied. This wasn't a vacation home. This was someone's sanctuary. Jack parked his battered pickup beside a small fleet of luxury vehicles and sat for a moment, gathering his courage. He'd worked on expensive homes before, but nothing like this. Before he could exit his truck, the front door opened and Catherine emerged. She looked completely different from the bedraggled woman he'd pulled from the lake. Today, she wore tailored linen pants and a simple blouse, her platinum hair swept into an elegant knot. Despite the casual attire, she still radiated authority. Right on time, she said as he approached, her smile professional but warm. Thank you for coming. Impressive place, Jack said, unable to hide his amazement as she led him inside. The interior was just as stunning as the exterior. Soaring ceilings, natural light flooding through enormous windows, and a seamless flow between indoor and outdoor spaces. Yet there was something slightly off about it all. Some rooms appeared barely lived in, while others showed signs of recent, hasty occupation. "How long have you owned this place?" Jack asked as they walked. "It's been in my family for generations," Catherine replied. Though I only recently decided to restore it." She led him through the house, pointing out various projects. Outdated wiring in the east wing, leaking windows in the solarium, a troublesome HVAC system. Jack listened attentively, making mental notes and occasionally asking technical questions that seemed to impress her. "You know your stuff," she remarked as they headed toward the lakefront. "I should. Been doing it since I was 15, he said without false modesty. "My dad was in construction. Taught me everything before he passed." They reached the boathouse, and Catherine's demeanor subtly changed. Her shoulders tensed, and her pace slowed as she pushed open the weathered door. Inside, the cavernous space smelled of must and lake water. A sleek motorboat was docked in one slip, while another sat empty. Sunlight filtered through dirty windows, illuminating dust motes and cobwebs. "This needs the most work," Catherine said, her voice oddly tight. "The integrity of the structure is compromised, particularly the back wall and the storage area." Jack moved around the space, assessing the damage. The boathouse had clearly been neglected for years, perhaps decades. "What happened here?" he asked, noticing peculiar scorch marks on one wall. Catherine hesitated. "There was a fire many years ago." "Electrical?" "Something like that." Her evasiveness was palpable. "Can it be repaired?" Jack tested a support beam, feeling the give in the rotten wood. "Yes, but it won't be cheap or quick." He glanced at her. "Why not just tear it down and rebuild?" A shadow crossed her face. "Historical value. My grandfather built it in the 1940s. Jack nodded, though he suspected there was more to it than sentimentality. As they moved to the back of the boathouse, he noticed a padlocked door. "Storage?" he asked. "Yes, nothing important." Catherine quickly guided him away. "Let's look at the dock next." The dock extended 50 feet into the lake, much of it visibly damaged from weather and wear. As they walked its length, Jack realized they were facing the same cove where he'd rescued Catherine the day before. "So that's why you were out here," he said, the pieces clicking into place. "This is your property." Catherine nodded, gazing out over the water. "Yes, though I rarely visit this section. It's so difficult for me." Something in her tone made Jack hold back the questions that sprang to mind. Instead, he focused on the task at hand. "The dock needs a complete rebuild. These pilings are shot." After completing the tour, they returned to the main house where Catherine led him to a bright sunroom overlooking the gardens. A silver tea service waited alongside contract documents. "Please sit," she said, gesturing to a comfortable chair. "Would you like tea? Or perhaps coffee?" "Coffee would be great," Jack said, still processing everything he'd seen. As Catherine prepared his coffee, herself, he noted, not calling a servant, Jack reviewed the scope of work. It was extensive but straightforward. Standard repairs and renovations. Nothing suspicious or concerning. "The payment terms are on the last page," Catherine said, handing him a steaming mug. "I think you'll find them reasonable." Jack nearly choked on his first sip when he saw the figure. The contract offered a retainer that exceeded what he typically made in 3 months, plus weekly payments and a substantial completion bonus. "This is generous," he said carefully. "It's market rate for the expertise required, plus compensation for the urgent timeline. I need this completed within 8 weeks. Jack frowned. 8 weeks is ambitious for this much work. "I'd need help." "You can hire whoever you need. I've included an allowance for additional labor in the budget." It was a dream opportunity, financial security, interesting work, and enough surplus to perhaps finally move Lily out of the trailer into a proper house. Yet something felt off. "Why me?" he asked bluntly. "You could hire any contractor in Florida. Top firms from Miami or Orlando would jump at this." Catherine set down her teacup, her blue eyes holding his with unnerving intensity. "Because I've had enough of firms and teams who overcharge and underdeliver. Because I saw how you responded yesterday, without hesitation, without calculation. Because I need someone I can trust, Mr. Harrison." "Trust for what exactly?" Catherine rose and walked to the window, her back to him. For a long moment, she was silent, and Jack wondered if he'd overstepped. "There's another aspect to the job," she finally said, turning to face him. "One not detailed in the contract," Jack tensed. I'm listening. I need you to find something for me. Something lost in the lake. What kind of something? Catherine's composed facade cracked slightly. A locket. Gold, heart-shaped, with small diamonds around the edge. It contains the only picture I have of my brother. The raw emotion in her voice caught Jack off guard. And it's in the lake? How do you know? Because I was wearing it the day he drowned. The words hung in the air between them, heavy with implication. 25 years ago, right where you found me yesterday. Jack stood, moving closer to her. I'm sorry about your brother. Truly. But I'm a handyman, not a recovery diver. I know that. But you know these waters, and I'm willing to provide whatever equipment or training you need. Her gaze was unwavering. The official search was called off after 3 days. My parents couldn't bear to stay, so we left. I was 12. And you've only come back now? After 25 years? Catherine turned away again. I've been back several times over the years, discreetly. But recent developments have made finding the locket urgent. What developments? I'm not at liberty to discuss that. Her professional demeanor returned like a shield being raised. All you need to know is that I'm prepared to double your fee if you can recover it. Jack ran a hand through his hair, conflicted. The story explained Catherine's behavior at the lake, but he sensed she wasn't telling him everything. Still, the money would change his and Lily's lives. I'll need proper diving equipment and someone to teach me how to use it, he said finally. And I can't make any promises. That lake bottom is silty and dark. Finding something that small after so many years. I understand the odds. Catherine's relief was visible. Thank you, Jack. The use of his first name, spoken softly and with genuine gratitude, caught him by surprise. Don't thank me yet. I haven't found anything. But you're willing to try. That's more than most would do. She returned to her seat and pushed the contract toward him. Do we have an agreement? Jack hesitated only briefly before signing. Whatever Catherine's secrets, they couldn't be worse than the financial uncertainty he'd been facing. As he drove home that afternoon, contract copy on the passenger seat and a substantial advance check in his pocket, Jack couldn't shake the feeling he'd just stepped into deeper waters than any in Lake Okeechobee. Catherine's story about her brother was tragic but straightforward. Yet her urgency, her secrecy about those recent developments suggested complications he couldn't foresee. His phone rang, the Bluetooth connecting to his truck's speakers. Hello? Jack, it's Catherine. There's one more thing. His grip tightened on the steering wheel. What's that? I'd prefer if you didn't mention our arrangement to anyone. For privacy reasons. Fine by me, Jack said, though the request added to his unease. Also, I've taken the liberty of having some items delivered to your home. Tools you'll need for the job. They should arrive this evening. Jack frowned. How do you know where I live? A pause. I have resources, Jack. I thought that was obvious. The call ended, leaving Jack in uneasy silence. Of course she had resources. She was a tech billionaire with a 30-person research team and probably access to every database in the country. But the casual invasion of privacy bothered him. When he arrived home, he found Lily already there with Mrs. Ortiz, working on homework at the kitchen table. Daddy, Lily launched herself at him. You won't believe what happened at school today. We had a substitute teacher who could do magic tricks and… Slow down, kiddo, Jack laughed, hoisting her up despite his sore leg. He nodded gratefully to Mrs. Ortiz. Thanks for picking her up. No problem, the woman said, gathering her purse. Oh, and there was a delivery for you. I signed for it. Hope that's okay. Jack followed her gaze to several large boxes stacked by the door. They bore no shipping labels, just his name printed in neat block letters. After Mrs. Ortiz left, Jack opened the largest box while Lily watched curiously. Inside was top-of-the-line diving equipment, a wetsuit, tanks, regulators, dive computer, everything he'd need to search the lake bottom. Cool, Lily exclaimed. Are you going to be a scuba diver, Daddy? Just for a special job, Lilypad, he said, examining the equipment with a mixture of appreciation and apprehension. The second box contained a waterproof metal detector and underwater lighting system. The third, smaller box held a satellite phone and a sealed envelope. Inside was a handwritten note. Jack, these should help with our special project. The satellite phone is secure and programmed with my private number. Call if you find anything, day or night. Your diving instructor will contact you tomorrow morning. His name is Martinez. He's discreet. Sri Yuri, Sue. As Lily explored the diving gear with delighted curiosity, Jack reread the note, the hair on the back of his neck rising. The equipment must have cost thousands, and it had been delivered within hours of their meeting. Catherine must have had it ready and waiting, confident he would accept her offer, which meant she'd been planning this before their chance encounter at the lake. The realization hit him like a physical blow. Had she arranged everything? Was the alligator attack just a bizarre coincidence? Or had Catherine deliberately put herself in danger, knowing someone might come to her rescue? No, that was paranoid thinking. No one would risk death by alligator as part of some elaborate scheme. Yet the timing nagged at him. "Daddy, what's this?" Lily asked, pulling something from the bottom of the first box. It was a small, waterproof case containing an old photograph protected in plastic. Jack took it carefully, studying the image. A young girl with platinum blonde hair, unmistakably Catherine, stood beside a slightly older boy on a dock. The same dock Jack had inspected earlier that day. Both children were smiling, the boy's arm protectively around his sister's shoulders. They shared the same striking blue eyes. Jack turned the photo over. Written on the back in childish handwriting were the words, "Catherine and Michael, Summer 1999, the last picture." The poignancy of the image and inscription struck Jack deeply. Whatever Catherine's secrets and motivations, her grief for her brother was real. The photograph humanized her in a way their interactions so far hadn't. As he tucked the photo back into its case, Jack made a decision. He would find that locket, for Catherine, yes, but also for the smiling boy who had never grown up, and for the sister who had spent 25 years carrying that loss. What he didn't know, what he couldn't know, was that finding the locket would uncover secrets far darker than a childhood tragedy. Secrets that powerful people had killed to protect, and would kill again to keep buried at the bottom of Lake Okeechobee. The dive instructor, Martinez, turned out to be a compact, no-nonsense former Navy SEAL with the patience of a saint and the vocabulary of a sailor. For 3 days, he drilled Jack in the basics of scuba diving in the shallow end of the local community pool, away from curious eyes. "You're a natural," Martinez said on the 4th morning as Jack demonstrated a perfect controlled descent. "But lake diving is different from pool work. Visibility will be shit, maybe 3 feet on a good day. And the bottom is a mix of mud, weeds, and branches that's easy to get tangled in." Jack nodded, trying not to show his nervousness. "When do we try the lake?" "Tomorrow. Today we practice with the metal detector." By sunset, Jack had mastered the basics of underwater search patterns and metal detection. His muscles ached from the unaccustomed activity, and his skin felt perpetually damp, but he was making progress. "Remember," Martinez said as they packed up, "slow and methodical wins this race. Whatever you're looking for has been down there a long time. It's not going anywhere." Jack thought about telling Martinez exactly what he was searching for, but remembered Catherine's request for discretion. Besides, the fewer people who knew about the locket, the better. During those training days, Catherine texted occasionally for updates, but otherwise kept her distance. Jack found himself thinking about her more than he should, wondering what she was doing, whether she visited the lake when he wasn't there, trying to reconcile the powerful CEO with the vulnerable woman who had shared her childhood tragedy. Meanwhile, work on the estate had begun. Jack had hired 2 men he trusted from previous jobs. Ray, a skilled carpenter in his 60s who asked few questions, and Tomas, a young electrician studying engineering at night school. Neither questioned the generous pay or the odd requirement to avoid certain parts of the property, particularly the locked room in the boathouse. On the 5th day, Jack prepared for his first real dive. He arrived at Catherine's estate before dawn, when the lake would be calmest. Martinez was already there, setting up equipment on the dock. To Jack's surprise, Catherine appeared as they were doing final checks, dressed in practical clothes with her hair pulled back. Dark circles under her eyes suggested she hadn't slept well. "I'd like to observe, if that's acceptable," she said formally. Martinez looked to Jack, who nodded. "Of course." They went through the safety procedures one last time, then Jack slipped into the dark water. Despite the wetsuit, the lake felt cold at depth, and the visibility was even worse than Martinez had predicted, perhaps 2 feet at most. Jack switched on his underwater light and began his first search pattern, focusing on the area where Catherine had been swimming when he rescued her. The bottom was a featureless expanse of silt and aquatic plants, occasionally interrupted by fallen branches or discarded fishing tackle. The metal detector signaled frequently, but each investigation yielded only beer cans, lost watches, or unidentifiable chunks of rusted metal. After 45 minutes, Jack surfaced for a tank change. Catherine was waiting at the edge of the dock, her expression tense. Nothing yet, he reported, removing his mouthpiece. But I've only covered a small area. She nodded, clearly trying to mask her disappointment. How much longer can you continue today? Another 2 tanks, maybe 3. Martinez says we shouldn't push it, since I'm still new to this. Of course. Safety first. She handed him a thermos of hot coffee. Take a proper break first. Jack accepted gratefully, surprised by the thoughtfulness. As they sat on the dock, legs dangling above the water, a silent camaraderie formed between them. 2 people united in a common purpose, if only temporarily. Tell me about your brother, Jack said impulsively. If you don't mind. Catherine stiffened slightly but then relaxed. Michael was 4 years older than me. Brilliant, fearless, always getting into trouble but somehow never getting caught. A small smile played at her lips. He was the one person who treated me like a normal kid, not an heiress or a prodigy. He sounds like a good brother. The best. Her voice softened. That summer, our last summer, he taught me to fish, to drive a boat, to stand up for myself. He had just turned 16 and thought he knew everything. The smile faded. Maybe if he'd been a little less confident. Jack wanted to ask what happened the day Michael drowned, but sensed it wasn't the right moment. Instead, he asked, was this your family's vacation home? Yes. My grandfather built it after making his fortune in manufacturing during World War II. My father expanded it when he moved the company into technology. She gazed at the mansion behind them. I hated it as a child, too big, too empty, but Michael loved it here. Said it was the only place he could breathe. The wistfulness in her voice touched something in Jack. Catherine Wells, for all her wealth and power, carried the same emotional burdens as anyone who'd lost someone they loved. I should get back in the water, he said finally, draining the last of his coffee. Jack, Catherine said as he stood, thank you. Not just for this, but for asking about him. Most people are afraid to mention Michael to me. Their eyes met, and for a moment, the polished billionaire facade dropped completely, revealing a woman who had built her entire adult life around a childhood wound. The rest of that day's search yielded nothing, nor did the next 4. But on the 7th dive, as Jack was methodically working his way through a previously unchecked area near the old boathouse foundation, the metal detector gave a different tone, higher pitched, more insistent. Heart racing, Jack carefully swept away the silt, expecting another false alarm. Instead, his fingers touched something small and hard. When he lifted it, clouds of sediment momentarily blinded him, but as the water cleared, he saw a tarnished gold chain dangling from his gloved hand. Not the locket, just a broken necklace chain. But as he examined it closer, he realized the clasp was intact. This chain hadn't broken accidentally, it had been cut. Jack pocketed the chain and continued searching the immediate area with renewed focus. 20 minutes later, just as his air gauge warned he should ascend, the detector signaled again. This time the object was larger, heavier. Jack brushed away years of accumulated silt to reveal the unmistakable shape of a small handgun, now heavily corroded but still recognizable as a .22 caliber pistol. A chill that had nothing to do with the water temperature ran through him. A cut gold chain and a gun, both near where Catherine's brother had supposedly drowned. Coincidence seemed unlikely. Jack hesitated, then placed the gun back exactly as he'd found it and marked the spot with a small underwater beacon designed for this purpose. He needed time to think before bringing this discovery to Catherine. When he surfaced, she was waiting as usual, her expression hopeful. He showed her the broken chain. It's gold, but not your locket, he said, watching her face carefully. Found it about 50 feet from the boathouse. She examined it with shaking hands. This could be from the locket. The chain broke off sometimes. I kept meaning to get it fixed. Her eyes met his, bright with unshed tears. You're getting close, Jack. I know it. He nodded, saying nothing about the gun. Something wasn't adding up, and until he understood more, he would keep that discovery to himself. That evening, after sending Lily to a sleepover at Emma's house, Jack sat at his kitchen table with his laptop. The chain lay before him alongside the old photograph Catherine had included with the diving equipment. He studied the image again, focusing on details he'd missed before. Young Catherine wore a chain around her neck, though the pendant itself was tucked inside her shirt. More interesting was the background. Not just the dock, but a portion of the boathouse was visible. And standing in the doorway, blurry but recognizable, was an adult figure watching the children. Jack enlarged the image as much as possible. The figure appeared to be a man in his 40s, with dark hair and what looked like a small scar or birthmark near his right eye. His expression was unreadable at this resolution, but something about his stance suggested tension rather than the relaxed posture of a vacationing parent. On impulse, Jack opened his browser and searched for historical images of the Wells family. Most results showed Catherine at various stages of her career, accepting awards, opening new company headquarters, speaking at technology conferences. Her parents appeared in older photos. Her father, Henry Wells, a stern-looking man with Catherine's same platinum hair. Her mother, Eleanor, dark-haired and aristocratic. None of these older photos included Michael, which seemed odd for a family's eldest son. It was as if he'd been deliberately excluded from the public record. After another hour of searching, Jack found what he was looking for. A small news article from 1999 reporting the tragic drowning of Michael Wells, 16, son of tech magnate Henry Wells, in a boating accident at the family's Florida estate. The article was brief, mentioning only that the boy had been alone on the lake when the accident occurred and that his body had not yet been recovered. Alone on the lake, but Catherine had said she was wearing the locket the day he drowned, which suggested she had been present. Another inconsistency. Jack's phone rang, startling him. Catherine's private number. "Jack, I'm sorry to call so late," she said without preamble. "But there's been a development. I need you to come to the estate. Now. It's almost midnight," he protested. Please. It's important." The anxiety in her voice was palpable. "Take the south entrance, not the main gate. It's less visible." Before he could ask what she meant by visible, she had hung up. Jack hesitated, then called Mrs. Ortiz to confirm Lily was settled for the night. Satisfied his daughter was safe, he grabbed his jacket and headed out, unease growing with each mile. The south entrance to the Wells estate was little more than a service road hidden behind dense foliage. Jack would have missed it entirely if not for the small reflector placed on a nearby tree. The gate was open and no security cameras were visible. He parked by a cluster of maintenance buildings and texted Catherine to announce his arrival. Within minutes, she appeared from the darkness, dressed in black with her distinctive hair covered by a scarf. "Thank you for coming," she said, her voice tight. "We need to talk where we won't be overheard. Follow me." She led him through a series of gardens to a small greenhouse filled with orchids. Once inside, she activated some kind of electronic device that emitted a low hum. "Signal jammer," she explained, noting his raised eyebrow. "We can speak freely now." "What's going on, Catherine? All this cloak and dagger stuff is—" "Someone broke into the boathouse tonight," she interrupted. They went straight to the locked storage room and searched it thoroughly. Jack stared at her. "Did you call the police?" "I can't involve the police." She began pacing between rows of exotic blooms. "Jack, there's something I haven't told you. Something about Michael's death. Like the fact that you were there when it happened. Not just wearing the locket," he challenged. "Or that the official report says he was alone." Catherine stopped pacing, surprise flickering across her face. "You've been investigating, trying to make sense of things that don't add up. Like finding a cut gold chain and a handgun near where your brother supposedly drowned." Her face went pale. "You found a gun?" "This afternoon. I marked the location but left it in place. Thought I should talk to you first." Catherine sank onto a stone bench, her composure cracking. "I knew it," she whispered. "All these years I knew it." "Knew what exactly?" She looked up at him, eyes blazing with long-contained fury. "That Michael didn't drown. He was murdered." The word hung in the humid greenhouse air like a physical presence. "Tell me everything," Jack said quietly, sitting beside her. "No more half-truths." Catherine took a deep breath. "The official story, the one my parents told the police, the media, everyone, was that Michael took a boat out alone and drowned in a tragic accident. But that's not what happened." She twisted her hands in her lap. "We were both on the dock that day. Michael had been acting strange for weeks, jumpy, secretive. He'd been spending time in our father's study when no one was home, going through his files." "What kind of files?" "I didn't know then. I was only 12. But that day, Michael told me he'd discovered something terrible about Dad's company. Something illegal. He had proof, he said, hidden in the locket he'd given me for my birthday earlier that summer." Jack frowned. "In the locket? How?" "It had a false back. Michael had modified it to hide a tiny memory chip. Cutting-edge technology for 1999. A sad smile touched her lips. "He was a genius with electronics, like Dad. But he used his talents to hide things, not build them." "What was on the chip?" "Files showing that my father's company was selling surveillance technology to foreign governments with horrific human rights records. Not just standard equipment, specially designed tools for tracking and capturing political dissidents. Michael discovered that several people had already been killed because of these tools." Jack whistled softly. That's heavy stuff for a 16-year-old to carry. Michael had a powerful sense of justice. He confronted our father that morning. I wasn't supposed to be there, but I overheard from the hallway. My father was furious, threatened to send Michael to military school. Catherine's voice hardened. Then my father made a phone call. I didn't hear what he said, but 20 minutes later, a man I'd never seen before arrived at the house. The man in the photograph? Standing in the boathouse doorway? Catherine's eyes widened. You noticed him? Yes, that was Richard Kane, my father's head of security, former military intelligence. He and my father took Michael down to the boathouse. They were shouting. I followed and hid outside. Her voice dropped to nearly a whisper. I heard a gunshot, then silence. A few minutes later, my father and Kane came out without Michael. They didn't see me hiding in the bushes. Kane was carrying something wrapped in a tarp out to the boat. My father was saying they needed to weigh it down properly. Jack felt sick. They killed him and dumped his body in the lake. Catherine nodded, tears now flowing freely. My father saw me later that afternoon and realized I'd been wearing the locket. He tried to take it from me, but in the struggle, the chain broke. I ran and hid until my mother found me. By then, I was so terrified I refused to speak. They sent me to a psychiatric hospital for 3 months. By the time I came out, the official story was firmly established. Tragic accident, body never recovered. And you never told anyone the truth? Who would believe a traumatized 12-year-old over Henry Wells, tech visionary and philanthropist? Bitterness laced her words. Besides, I had no proof. The chain and locket were gone. I suspected my father had searched for them, but never found them. The locket must have fallen into the lake during my struggle with him. Jack leaned back, processing the horror of her story. So the break-in tonight? Someone knows I'm searching for the locket, Catherine confirmed, and they're getting nervous. Your father? She shook her head. He died 5 years ago. Heart attack at his desk. Convenient, Jack muttered. Very. Especially since I had just begun my own investigation into the company's past. She met his eyes directly. After years of therapy and building my own power base, I finally felt strong enough to look into what Michael had discovered. I've been quietly gathering evidence, tracking old deals, following money trails. And what have you found? Confirmation that Wells Technologies did indeed sell specialized surveillance equipment to at least 7 dictatorships throughout the 1990s. The program was officially terminated after my father's sudden attack of conscience in 2000, but I've found evidence suggesting it went underground. Jack frowned. That's why finding the locket is so urgent. It contains proof from before anyone thought to cover their tracks. Exactly. Catherine stood, her composure returning. But I'm not the only one looking for it now. Whoever broke in tonight knew exactly where to search. The one place I've kept locked since purchasing the estate back from my mother last year. What's in that room? Catherine hesitated. It was Michael's workshop, where he modified the locket, worked on his electronics projects. I've been studying his notes, trying to understand exactly what he found and how he stored it. And now someone else is interested in those notes. Jack rubbed his jaw, thinking. Kane, your father's security guy. What happened to him? Officially, he left the company in 2001 to start his own security consulting firm. In reality, I suspect he was paid very well to disappear. I've been trying to track him down, but he's gone completely off the grid. Not completely, Jack said quietly. Someone broke into that room tonight. Someone who knew what they were looking for. Catherine's eyes widened. You think it was Kane? Or someone working for him? Either way, I think we need to find that locket before they do. Jack stood. I'll go back to the dive site tomorrow. Focus on the area where I found the gun. Catherine touched his arm, her fingers cool against his skin. Jack, I need to be clear about something. This is dangerous. These people, whoever they are, have killed before and would likely do so again to protect themselves. If you want to walk away, I would understand completely. Jack thought of Lily, of the risks he would be taking. But he also thought of Michael, murdered at 16 for trying to expose a terrible truth. Of Catherine carrying this burden alone for 25 years. I'm not walking away, he said firmly, but I have conditions. First, Lily's safety is non-negotiable. If at any point I feel she might be at risk, I'm out. Of course, I would never want to endanger your daughter. Second, no more secrets. I need to know everything you know if I'm going to help you. Catherine nodded slowly. Agreed. And third, if we find the locket, when we find it, we go to the authorities together. The right authorities, not just anyone with a badge. This needs to be made public, the right way. That was always my intention, Catherine said. Justice for Michael, not revenge. As they walked back to his truck, Jack felt the weight of what he'd learned pressing down on him. He was no longer just searching for a sentimental keepsake, but evidence in a decades-old murder, one committed by wealthy, powerful people who were already aware of his involvement. Be careful tomorrow, Catherine said as they reached the service entrance. Stay vigilant even during the day. What about you? If they broke in once, they might come back. I've increased security and moved to the East Wing. I'll be fine. She hesitated, then added, I've never told anyone the full truth before, not even my therapist. It feels strange to have someone else know. Strange good or strange bad? A ghost of a smile touched her lips. Strange good, I think. Good night, Jack. As he drove home, Jack's mind raced through everything he'd learned. The story explained so much. Catherine's reclusiveness, her determination to find the locket, her insistence on secrecy. But it also raised disturbing new questions. Who exactly was looking for the locket now? How had they known Catherine was searching for it? And most importantly, how far would they go to ensure it was never found? The trailer was dark and quiet when he arrived home. Jack checked his phone, a text from Mrs. Ortiz confirming Lily was asleep at her house, all was well. Relief flooded through him, followed by a wave of protective fear. What had he gotten himself into? He secured the doors and windows, then sat at his computer again. This time he searched for information about Richard Kane, Catherine's father's head of security. The results were sparse but revealing. Kane had indeed started a security consultancy after leaving Wells Technologies, but the company had been quietly dissolved 5 years later. The last public photograph of him dated from 2010, a charity golf tournament sponsored by defense contractors. In it, Kane stood in the background, his face older but still recognizable as the man from Catherine's childhood photo. The distinctive mark near his eye was clearly visible now. Not a birthmark, but a small scar. Jack was about to close his laptop when a final search result caught his eye. A property record from 3 years ago. Richard Kane had purchased a cabin just 30 miles from Lake Placid, on the northern shore of Lake Okeechobee. Too close to be coincidence. Jack's phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Found something interesting in Michael's notes. Come by the boathouse at 8 a.m. I see, he replied with a simple, okay, and tried to get some sleep, but rest eluded him. Every sound outside seemed menacing, every shadow a potential threat. When his alarm went off at 6, he'd barely slept 2 hours. After picking up Lily from the Ortiz house and dropping her at school with extra tight hugs, Jack headed for the Wells estate. This time he used the main entrance, noting with approval the increased security presence. 2 guards at the gate, cameras more prominently displayed. Catherine was already at the boathouse when he arrived, dressed for diving in a sleek wetsuit, her platinum hair pulled back in a practical braid. You're coming in with me today? Jack asked, surprised. I've been certified since college, she explained. I just haven't been able to dive in this lake until now. Too many memories. Her voice was matter-of-fact, but Jack could see the cost of her composure in the tension around her eyes. What did you find in Michael's notes? Catherine led him into the boathouse and produced a worn notebook filled with a teenager's meticulous handwriting and technical diagrams. Michael was obsessed with creating hidden compartments and storage, she explained, pointing to various sketches. The locket was just one of many projects. But look at this! She turned to a page showing a detailed diagram of the lake bottom near the boathouse. Various points were marked with cryptic notations, MB1, MB2, MB3. I think these are markers he placed. Underwater geocaching before it was a thing. Her finger traced a circle around one spot labeled MB7. This one is roughly where you found the gun. Jack studied the diagram. These are precise coordinates. With these, we could narrow our search significantly. Exactly. Michael was nothing if not methodical. I think he may have created an underwater, what would you call it? A dead drop? A place to hide things he didn't want found. Like evidence against your father, Jack nodded slowly. Smart kid. The smartest. Pride mingled with sorrow in her voice. Too smart for his own safety, as it turned out. They prepared their equipment in focused silence. As Jack checked his tanks, Catherine suddenly asked, How did you end up a single father in Lake Placid? You don't seem like someone who's always lived in a small town. The question caught him off guard. What makes you say that? The way you speak. The books I noticed in your truck. The fact that you weren't remotely intimidated by me, even after you knew who I was. She gave him a sidelong glance. Most people are, you know. Jack smiled slightly. Maybe I'm just naturally impertinent. Then more seriously, I was a structural engineer in Orlando. Good career, nice house in the suburbs, the whole package. Then my wife left, and 6 months later, the company I worked for went bankrupt during the recession. Couldn't find equivalent work, fell behind on the mortgage, and eventually lost the house. I'm sorry, Catherine said quietly. Don't be. Lily and I landed on our feet, more or less. My dad left me the trailer and enough skills to make a living with my hands. It's not the life I planned, but it's a good one. He finished checking his regulator. Lily's happy, healthy, and smart as a whip. That's what matters. Catherine nodded, a peculiar expression crossing her face. Something like envy mixed with admiration. A good perspective to have. They entered the water together, Jack leading the way to the area he'd marked. The visibility was marginally better than previous days, and with Catherine's diagram, they were able to establish a more efficient search pattern. An hour into the dive, Catherine tapped Jack's shoulder urgently and pointed. Just visible in the murky water was what appeared to be a concrete block, half buried in the lake bottom, with the faded marking MB7 still visible on its side. Jack gave the hand signal for "found it" and swam closer. The gun he discovered earlier was indeed near this marker. Catherine pointed to the south side of the block, where the concrete appeared to have a small, engineered opening. Carefully, Jack probed the hole with his gloved finger. Something inside shifted. He worked it gently until a small, waterproof tube emerged, similar to what scuba divers used to carry emergency documents. Catherine's eyes widened behind her mask. She made an urgent surface signal, and they ascended together, maintaining the proper safety stop despite their excitement. Once on the dock, Catherine opened the tube with trembling hands. Inside was a laminated piece of paper with a handwritten note in a teenager's script. If you're reading this, something bad probably happened to me. Everything is hidden at MB3. The key is 071683, Mom's birthday. Tell Kat I'm sorry I couldn't protect her. Michael. Catherine pressed a hand to her mouth, tears mingling with the lake water on her face. He knew, she whispered. He knew they might come for him. Jack squeezed her shoulder, finding no adequate words for the moment. After giving her time to compose herself, he asked quietly, Do you know where MB3 is? She nodded, pointing to the diagram they'd left on the dock. Here, under the far edge of the dock. Let's go. They re-entered the water, swimming directly to the location. Sure enough, another concrete block was partially visible, this one more deliberately concealed beneath the dock's shadow. It took both of them working together to clear enough silt to reveal a small, combination lock box attached to the block. Catherine entered the numbers with shaking fingers, 071683, and the lock clicked open. Inside, protected by layers of waterproof material, was a small metal object the size of a credit card. An early prototype of a flash drive, Jack realized. And beside it, gleaming dully in the filtered light, was a heart-shaped gold locket. Catherine reached for it reverently, her movements almost dreamlike. She cradled the locket in her palm, then looked at Jack and nodded toward the surface. Back on the dock, she opened the locket with practiced fingers. Inside was exactly what she'd described. A tiny memory chip, ingeniously fitted into a hidden compartment behind a small photograph of Catherine and Michael together. We found it, she whispered. After all these years. Before Jack could respond, the sharp crack of a rifle shot split the air. The wooden dock beside Catherine's hand splintered, sending fragments flying. Get down, Jack shouted, pulling her behind the solid bulk of a piling. Another shot struck the water where they had been standing seconds before. Catherine clutched the locket and drive against her chest, her eyes wide with shock and fear. They found us. We need to move. Now, Jack pointed to the boathouse. It's our best chance for cover. They crouched low, ready to make a run for it. But as they tensed to move, a harsh voice called out from the tree line. Miss Wells, there's no need for anyone to get hurt today. Just leave the items on the dock and walk away. Jack and Catherine exchanged glances. The voice was unfamiliar to both of them. Who are you? Catherine shouted back. What do you want? You know exactly what we want. The voice was coldly professional. The locket. The drive. Leave them and go. So you can destroy evidence of murder, she challenged. Evidence of illegal weapon sales to dictators? A pause. Then, those are serious accusations with serious consequences. Consider your daughter, Mr. Harrison. Ice flooded Jack's veins. What did you say? Lily Harrison, 8 years old, currently in Mrs. Ramirez's third-grade class at Lake Placid Elementary. She doesn't need to lose her father today. Rage and terror battled within Jack. If you go near my daughter, that's entirely up to you. The items on the dock. You have 30 seconds. Catherine's face had gone ghostly white. Jack, she whispered. Take this. She pressed the locket and drive into his hand. Go through the boathouse. There's a tunnel in the back room. The locked one. It leads to the main house. I'll create a diversion. What? No, I'm not leaving you. 20 seconds, the voice called. Lily needs you, Catherine said fiercely. And I need you to get these to safety. Please, Jack. Trust me. The determination in her eyes convinced him. He nodded once, closing his fist around the precious items. 10 seconds! Now! Catherine suddenly shouted, grabbing a flare gun from their diving equipment. She fired it into the trees where the voice had come from, and chaos erupted. Jack sprinted for the boathouse as gunfire tore into the dock behind him. He heard Catherine moving in the opposite direction, drawing their attention. The boathouse door banged shut behind him as he raced through the dim interior. The locked room at the back no longer had a door. It had been broken down during the earlier break-in. Inside what had once been a teenager's electronics workshop was now a jumble of overturned furniture and scattered components. Jack spotted what Catherine had mentioned, a trap door partially hidden under a workbench. He yanked it open and dropped through, finding himself in a narrow concrete tunnel dimly lit by emergency lights. Behind him, he heard shouting and more gunfire. Heart pounding, he ran through the tunnel, praying Catherine was safe, that Lily was safe, that he wasn't making a terrible mistake by leaving. The tunnel ended at another ladder, which he climbed to emerge in what appeared to be a wine cellar beneath the main house. He stumbled into the kitchen, startling a middle-aged housekeeper who screamed at the sight of him. Wild-eyed, still in his wetsuit, dripping lake water onto the immaculate floor. Mrs. Well sent me, he gasped. There are armed men at the boathouse. Call security. Now! The woman's training overcame her shock. She pressed a button on the wall, and alarms immediately began to sound throughout the house. Within seconds, armed security guards appeared from various directions. Jack quickly explained the situation, and the head of security immediately deployed his team toward the boathouse while calling for police backup. Where's Miss Wells now? The man demanded. Still out there, Jack said, guilt and fear clawing at his throat. She created a diversion so I could get away with this. He held up the locket and drive. The security chief's eyes widened slightly, then he nodded with sudden understanding. She told you about her brother? Yes, and about Kane. Kane? The man frowned. Richard Kane died 3 years ago. Car accident, Jack's mind raced. Then who? His question was interrupted by the sound of helicopter rotors overhead, followed by more gunfire from the direction of the lake. Then his phone buzzed in the waterproof case at his hip. The text message froze his blood. We have your daughter. The locket for her life. Come alone to the North Shore boat launch. 1 hour. Attached was a photo of Lily, her eyes wide with terror, a gloved hand covering her mouth. They have my daughter. Jack's voice cracked as he showed the security chief the message. The man Davis, according to his badge, immediately took charge, ordering his team to secure the property while simultaneously contacting local law enforcement. You can't go alone, Davis insisted, his expression grim but professional. It's a trap. I don't have a choice, Jack said, already moving toward the door. It's Lily. A commotion from the front of the house interrupted them. Catherine burst through the door, escorted by 2 security guards. Her wetsuit was torn at the shoulder, blood seeping from a grazing wound, but her eyes burned with determination. Jack! Are you all right? Did you get the… She stopped, registering his expression. What's happened? He showed her the message. Her face drained of color. My God. They took a child? Something dangerous flickered in her eyes. Davis locked down the estate. Call in every security asset we have. And get me satellite surveillance of the North Shore boat launch now. Davis nodded and moved away, speaking rapidly into his radio. This is my fault, Catherine said, her voice hollow. They came for me, and now they have your daughter. Blame won't help Lily, Jack said, struggling to keep panic at bay. We need a plan. Catherine touched his arm. Well, we'll get her back. I promise you, she turned to one of her security team. Bring me the secure laptop from my office. And call Martinez. Tell him to meet us at the North Shore in 40 minutes. Jack paced as Catherine transformed before his eyes from the vulnerable woman sharing childhood trauma into a commanding CEO orchestrating a complex operation. Within minutes, the house had become a tactical headquarters, with security personnel coordinating movements and Davis reporting that local police had been alerted to a potential kidnapping. The police won't move until we have visual confirmation of Lily's location, Davis explained. They're concerned about spooking the kidnappers. Then we get that confirmation ourselves, Catherine said as an assistant arrived with the requested laptop. She opened it, entered a complex password, and pulled up what appeared to be a satellite mapping program. I have access to private surveillance satellites through Wells Technologies. Let's see what we're dealing with. The screen showed a high-resolution aerial view of the boat launch, a small clearing with a concrete ramp leading into the lake, surrounded by cypress trees and dense undergrowth. A single vehicle was visible, a dark SUV parked near the water. There, Catherine pointed. One vehicle, at least 2 heat signatures inside. She adjusted the settings and the image shifted to infrared. 3 people total, one significantly smaller. Lily, Jack whispered, leaning closer to the screen. She's alive. And she's going to stay that way, Catherine said firmly. She pulled up building schematics for what appeared to be the boat launch facilities. There's a maintenance shed here, with a clear line of sight to the main ramp. We can position a counter-sniper there. Jack looked at her sharply. Counter-sniper? Catherine, these are kidnappers with my daughter. We can't risk... I'm not suggesting we start shooting, she explained quickly, but we need leverage. If they see we have tactical positioning, they'll be less likely to attempt anything rash. The exchange was interrupted by Davis returning with a secure phone. It's ready. Catherine took it, her expression hardening. Time to find out what they really want. She dialed the number that had sent the text to Jack. The call connected after one ring. Catherine put it on speaker. Mrs. Well, a male voice said. How resourceful of you to trace the number. Let's skip the pleasantries, Catherine replied, her tone ice cold. You have a child. That crosses a line even the most depraved wouldn't touch. A humorless laugh. Says the woman sitting on evidence that could destroy dozens of powerful people. The girl is insurance, nothing more. She'll be released unharmed when we have the locket and drive. I want proof she's unharmed. Now. A pause then. Very well. Lily's voice came through the speaker, small and frightened, but unmistakably hers. No, Daddy? Where are you? I want to go home. Jack closed his eyes briefly, fighting for composure. I'm coming, Lilypad. Be brave for me, okay? I'm coming to get you. That's enough, the man cut in. 1 hour. The locket and drive for the girl. Mr. Harrison comes alone. Any sign of police or your security people, and this conversation changes dramatically. The call ended. Catherine and Jack exchanged looks. We have 50 minutes, she said. And now we know she's alive and relatively unharmed. What's the plan? Jack asked, struggling to think clearly through his fear. Catherine's expression was resolute. They want the locket and drive. We'll give them reasonable facsimiles, at least from a distance. And if they check them, we make sure they don't get the chance. She turned to Davis. I need a secure uplink to the executive team at Wells Technologies. Authorization code Lazarus. As Davis arranged this, Catherine led Jack to a small study off the main hall. Once the door closed behind them, she turned to him. Jack, there's something you should know. The people who took Lily, they're not just random criminals. Based on their tactics and resources, I believe they're working for Nexus Securities. Who? A private military contractor with deep government connections. They rose to prominence in the early 2000s, taking over many of the surveillance contracts that Wells Technologies abandoned when my father supposedly grew a conscience. Her expression darkened. Their founder and CEO is a man named Thomas Blackwood. He was my father's second-in-command during the 90s. Jack's mind raced to connect the dots. You think Blackwood was involved in your brother's death? I'm certain of it. Kane may have pulled the trigger, but Blackwood would have given the order, likely with my father's blessing. Catherine hesitated. Nah, there's more. When I began investigating my father's old operations, I discovered that Nexus has continued and expanded the illegal surveillance programs. They've become a shadow intelligence agency, operating outside any meaningful oversight. And the evidence on the drive would implicate them. Not just implicate, destroy them. It would prove the company was built on murder and illegal technology transfers. Catherine's eyes met his. They're not just fighting for reputation, Jack. They're fighting for survival. The gravity of the situation hit Jack like a physical blow. These weren't ordinary criminals, but highly trained operatives with government connections and unlimited resources. And they had his daughter. How do we fight people like that? By being smarter, more determined, and having better leverage. Catherine moved to a painting on the wall and swung it aside to reveal a wall safe. She entered a combination and removed a small metal case. What's that? Insurance. She opened it to reveal what looked like a thumb drive. This contains encrypted copies of everything I've gathered on Nexus over the years. Names, dates, operations, financial records. Enough to bring down not just the company, but dozens of officials who've protected them. And you're just telling me this now? I needed to be sure I could trust you completely. Her expression softened slightly. I'm sorry, Jack, but these people killed my brother. Trust doesn't come easily. Jack ran a hand through his hair in frustration. So what's the actual plan? Because I'm not risking Lily's life on a fake locket in some elaborate sting operation. The plan is simple, Catherine said, closing the case. I go with you. They specified I come alone. They'll be expecting a double cross anyway, but they won't be expecting me to offer myself instead of the evidence. Jack stared at her. What are you talking about? Blackwood doesn't just want the evidence destroyed. He wants me silenced permanently. I'm the last living witness to my brother's murder, and I've spent years building a case against him and his associates. Catherine's voice was steady. I'm going to offer him a trade, me for Lily. That's insane. They'll kill you. Not immediately. Blackwood will want to know exactly what I've discovered, who I've told, where copies of the evidence might be hidden. Her expression was chillingly matter-of-fact. That gives us time. Time for what? For the real operation. While Blackwood is focused on me, Davis's team will move into position. Martinez is bringing diving equipment. The lake gives us a covert approach they won't be watching for. And I've instructed Wells Technologies to upload a data package to key news organizations and law enforcement agencies if I don't enter a termination code every 6 hours. Davis knocked and entered before Jack could respond. The uplink is ready, Ms. Wells, and Martinez has arrived with the equipment. Catherine nodded. Good. Tell him to prepare for a water insertion at the north end of the lake. I want 4 men minimum. As Davis left, Jack grabbed Catherine's arm. This is crazy. You're talking about trading your life for my daughters. I can't let you do that. Catherine met his gaze unflinchingly. It's not just about Lily or you or me anymore. It's about justice for Michael and all the other victims of these people. She gently removed his hand. Besides, I'm not planning to die today. The next 40 minutes passed in a blur of preparation. Catherine changed into tactical clothing while maintaining her businesslike demeanor, coordinating movements with Davis and his team. Jack was fitted with a concealed earpiece and a bulletproof vest thin enough to wear under his shirt. The fake locket and drive were prepared, virtually indistinguishable from the real items at a casual glance. Martinez briefed his diving team, 4 former Special Forces operators who would approach the boat launch underwater using the lake as cover. Police were positioned in a wide perimeter, instructed to move only on Catherine's signal. Remember, Catherine told Jack as they prepared to leave, you need to keep them talking. The more time they spend negotiating, the better positioned our people will be. Jack nodded, his mind focused solely on Lily. What if something goes wrong? Catherine handed him the metal case with the backup evidence. If everything goes sideways, get this to the FBI field office in Miami. Ask for Agent Rebecca Chen. She can be trusted. They departed in Jack's truck, the familiar vehicle less likely to raise alarms than one of Catherine's luxury cars. As they drove, Catherine sat in the passenger seat, her posture relaxed but alert. How are you so calm? Jack asked, his own hands white-knuckled on the steering wheel. I've been preparing for this confrontation for 25 years, she replied. In some ways, it's a relief it's finally happening. Jack glanced at her. Earlier, you said these Nexus people have government connections. If they're so powerful, how do you expect to bring them down? The political landscape has changed. The operations they're running, domestic surveillance, covert intelligence gathering on American citizens, have become increasingly toxic. The right evidence in the right hands will find enough people in power willing to act. She smiled grimly. Besides, I've made sure the evidence doesn't just implicate Nexus, but also reveals which politicians and officials have been protecting them. Mutually assured destruction. Exactly. Blackwood's mistake was thinking he only needed to silence me. He doesn't realize how far the evidence has already spread. They arrived at the rendezvous point with 5 minutes to spare. The boat launch was deserted except for the black SUV Jack had seen in the satellite imagery, parked at the edge of the concrete ramp. Stay in the truck until they make contact, Catherine instructed, her voice low. Remember, they expect you to be alone. Jack nodded, his eyes scanning the area desperately for any sign of Lily. The earpiece crackled to life with Davis's voice. Counter sniper in position. Water team at entry point. All units standing by. A man emerged from the SUV, tall, military straight posture, with close-cropped gray hair and sunglasses despite the fading light. He gestured for Jack to approach. "Game time," Jack muttered, exiting the truck. He walked forward slowly, hands visible. "That's far enough," the man called when Jack was about 20 feet away. "Where's the locket and drive?" "Where's my daughter?" Jack countered, his voice steadier than he felt. The man motioned, and the rear door of the SUV opened. A second man stepped out, gripping Lily's small hand. Her face was tear-streaked, but otherwise unharmed. "Daddy," she cried, trying to run forward, but the man held her firmly. "It's okay, Lilypad," Jack called, fighting to keep his voice calm. "Everything's going to be all right." "The items," the gray-haired man reminded him, his tone impatient. Jack removed the fake locket and drive from his pocket, holding them up. "Let her go first." "That's not how this works." The man extended his hand. "Items first, then the girl." In his earpiece, Davis whispered, "Water team in final position. 30 seconds. "I need proof they're real," the gray-haired man said, stepping closer. "Open the locket." Jack hesitated, knowing the moment the man realized the items were fake, the situation would deteriorate rapidly. Before he could decide what to do, the SUV's driver door opened and a third man stepped out, scanning the area suspiciously. "We've got movement in the trees, sir," he reported, hand moving to his concealed weapon. The gray-haired man's demeanor changed instantly. "You were told to come alone." "I did," Jack insisted, heart pounding. "He's lying," the third man said, drawing his weapon. "There's someone in his truck." The gray-haired man's face hardened. "Kill the girl." "We're compromised." Time seemed to slow. The man holding Lily began to pull her back toward the SUV. The third man raised his weapon toward Jack. And from the truck, Catherine's voice rang out, clear and commanding. "Hello, Thomas. It's been a long time." The gray-haired man froze, his attention shifting to the truck as Catherine emerged, hands raised but posture confident. "Catherine Wells," he said, genuine surprise in his voice. "This is unexpected." "Let the girl go, Blackwood," Catherine said, walking forward to stand beside Jack. "She's not part of this." Blackwood, for it was indeed Thomas Blackwood, CEO of Nexus Securities, studied her with cold calculation. "And why would I do that?" "Because I'm offering you a better deal." Catherine's voice was steel. "And me for the girl. I'm the one you really want." A thin smile spread across Blackwood's face. "Touching but inadequate. I need the evidence too." "The real evidence isn't here," Catherine replied. "It's secured with dead man switches that will trigger if anything happens to me or Mr. Harrison. But I'm prepared to tell you where every copy's located and provide termination codes, once the girl is safe." Blackwood considered this, clearly weighing his options. "And I should trust you because you know me, Thomas. You knew my father. The Wells family always honors its deals." Catherine's voice dripped with contempt on the last word. "Besides, you have very few alternatives at this point." Through his earpiece, Jack heard Davis whisper, "All units ready. Water team in position." Blackwood finally nodded. "Release the girl," he ordered the second man. "But if anyone makes a sudden move, shoot Ms. Wells first, then Harrison." The man reluctantly let go of Lily's hand. She stood frozen for a moment, uncertain, then ran toward Jack with a sob. He dropped to one knee, catching her in a fierce embrace, shielding her body with his own while keeping his eyes on the armed men. "You okay, Lilypad?" he whispered. She nodded against his shoulder, trembling. Jack looked up at Catherine, who gave him an almost imperceptible nod. "Take Lily back to the truck," she instructed calmly. "Lock the doors and stay down." "Catherine?" "It's okay, Jack. This is between Thomas and me now." Her eyes conveyed what her words couldn't. "Trust me. Be ready." Jack stood with Lily in his arms and backed toward the truck, every instinct screaming at him not to leave Catherine alone with these men. But Lily's safety had to come first. "Smart move, Catherine," Blackwood said once Jack and Lily were in the truck. "Offering yourself as a sacrifice. Very noble." "Hardly noble," she replied coolly. "Just business. You have questions you need answered, and I'm the only one who can answer them." Blackwood laughed, the sound devoid of humor. "Bidroma, business. Yes, you really are Henry's daughter." He gestured toward the SUV. "Shall we continue this conversation somewhere more private?" "Before we go anywhere," Catherine said, "I want your word that Harrison and his daughter will be left alone. Permanently. You're hardly in a position to make demands?" "On the contrary, I'm the only one who can prevent the evidence from going public. That makes my cooperation essential." From the truck, Jack watched the exchange with growing tension. In his ear, Davis was giving final instructions to the tactical teams. Lily huddled against him, her small body still shaking with fear. "It's going to be okay," he whispered to her. "Just stay down for me, okay?" "Who is that lady, Daddy?" Lily asked, her voice tiny. "Why is she talking to the bad men?" "She's—" Jack searched for words a child could understand. "She's a hero, Lily Pad. A real hero." Outside, Blackwood finally nodded. "Very well. The contractor and his daughter are irrelevant to me, as long as I have your cooperation. Then we have a deal." Catherine stepped toward the SUV, but stopped suddenly. "One last thing, Thomas. Did you give the order to kill Michael, or did my father?" Blackwood's expression flickered with surprise, then settled into cold amusement. "Your father couldn't have ordered a pizza without my approval, let alone a hit on his own son. Michael was a threat to operations worth billions. The decision was, regrettably, necessary." "Thank you," Catherine said softly. "I needed to hear you say that." Before Blackwood could respond, the water erupted at the edge of the boat ramp. 4 armed men in tactical gear surfaced simultaneously, weapons trained on Blackwood and his men. At the same moment, police vehicles roared into the clearing from multiple directions, and the distinctive red targeting dots of laser sights appeared on the chests of all 3 Nexus operatives. "Thomas Blackwood," Catherine announced, her voice amplified by the approaching officers' megaphones. "You're under arrest for the murder of Michael Wells and conspiracy to commit kidnapping." Blackwood's face contorted with rage. "You stupid bitch! You've signed your death warrant." "Actually," Catherine replied, producing a small recording device from her pocket, "I just signed yours. Your confession has been transmitted live to the FBI, along with GPS coordinates for this location. And in case you're wondering, yes, this entire confrontation is being recorded by multiple airborne cameras." She stepped away from him as police officers swarmed the scene, forcing Blackwood and his men to the ground. Jack emerged from the truck, still carrying Lily, and rushed to Catherine's side. "You okay?" he asked. She nodded, the adrenaline fade visible in her slightly shaking hands. "We did it. We got him." Davis approached, his expression grim but satisfied. "Mirrors Hernandez. Wells' FBI agents are en route. They're requesting the evidence be secured immediately." "Of course." Catherine looked to Jack. "The real locket and drive are still in your pocket, I assume?" Jack nodded, shifting Lily to one arm so he could retrieve the items. As he handed them to Catherine, their fingers touched, lingering for a moment. "Thank you," she said softly, "for everything." "I should be thanking you," Jack replied. "You risked your life for my daughter." Catherine smiled, a genuine expression that transformed her face. "Maybe we can just agree to call it even." As FBI agents arrived and took custody of Blackwood, Catherine was pulled away for debriefing. Jack found himself surrounded by paramedics checking Lily for injuries and police officers taking his statement. The chaos of the aftermath, flashing lights, raised voices, the constant crackle of radios, seemed distant and unreal after the focused intensity of the confrontation. Hours later, as night fully descended, Jack sat on the bumper of an ambulance, a shock blanket around his shoulders and Lily asleep in his lap. Catherine appeared through the crowd, looking exhausted but resolute. "It's over," she said, sitting beside him. "Blackwood's in federal custody. The evidence has been secured, and my statement has been recorded for the inevitable trial." "Will there be a trial?" Jack asked. "Men like that have ways of making charges disappear." "Not this time." Catherine's expression was grimly satisfied. "The evidence Michael collected didn't just implicate Nexus and my father. It named specific government officials who were complicit. Officials who are now scrambling to save themselves by turning on Blackwood. So justice for Michael at last. And for many others." She gently touched Lily's hair. "How is she?" "Physically fine. Emotionally," Jack sighed, "it's going to take time. The counselor says children are resilient, but this isn't something you just bounce back from." "I know." Catherine's eyes held the weight of her own childhood trauma. "If there's anything I can do, therapy, specialists, anything at all, just say the word." "Thank you." Jack hesitated, then added, "What happens now? With you, I mean." Catherine gazed out at the lake, its surface now calm and reflecting the emergency lights. "Now I rebuild. There will be substantial fallout for Wells Technologies once the full story comes out. Our stock will take a hit, board members will resign, government contracts will be scrutinized. But the company itself is sound, built on more than my father's crimes. And personally, after 25 years focused on finding justice for Michael, what's next?" She looked genuinely uncertain for the first time since he'd met her. I don't know. I've never allowed myself to think beyond this moment. Jack nodded in understanding. Well, when you figure it out, let me know. I still have a boathouse to repair. Catherine laughed, the sound startling in its normalcy after such an extraordinary day. Yes, I suppose you do. As they sat in companionable silence, watching the activity around them gradually wind down, Jack realized something fundamental had changed. The gulf between their worlds, billionaire and handyman, CEO and single father, seemed less significant now. They had faced death together, saved each other, shared truths few would ever understand. Whether that connection would last beyond this night, beyond the shared trauma and triumph, he couldn't say. But as Lily stirred in his arms and Catherine automatically reached out to soothe her, Jack felt something he hadn't experienced in years: possibility. The first light of dawn was breaking over Lake Okeechobee as the FBI finally released them. Catherine's security team had arrived with her personal vehicle, but she hesitated before getting in. "Jack," she said, her voice soft in the early morning stillness, "there's one more thing I never told you. About the locket." "What's that?" "The day Michael gave it to me, he said something I never forgot. He said, Kat, no matter what happens, remember that truth always finds its way to the surface. Just like air bubbles in water, you can push it down, but it will always rise." She smiled, a mixture of sorrow and peace in her expression. He was right. And now, finally, I can let him rest. As Catherine's car pulled away, Jack stood with Lily sleeping against his shoulder, watching until the taillights disappeared around a bend. Davis approached, handing him a sealed envelope. "From Miss Wells her shoot," he explained. Inside was a handwritten note and a key. The note read simply, "Jack, the boathouse still needs fixing. The key is to the East Wing guest house. It's yours for as long as you and Lily need a safe place to heal. No strings, no expectations. Until our paths cross again," Catherine Jack smiled, pocketing the key and note. Somehow he knew their paths would indeed cross again. After all, as Michael had said, some things always find their way to the surface. 3 months had passed since the confrontation at the boat launch. Summer had arrived in Florida, bringing afternoon thunderstorms and thick, humid air that hung over Lake Okeechobee like a blanket. The Wells estate had undergone a transformation. The boathouse, once dilapidated and haunted by dark memories, now stood rebuilt. Its weathered wood replaced, its structure sound. The dock extended into the lake with fresh planking gleaming in the morning sun. Even Michael's workshop had been restored, though now it served as a bright art studio where Lily often spent her afternoons painting watercolor landscapes of the lake. Jack wiped sweat from his brow as he applied a final coat of sealant to the boathouse door. The renovation project had expanded far beyond the original scope, with Catherine approving every addition and enhancement without question. The work had been therapeutic for him, a way to process the trauma while creating something beautiful and enduring. Inside the guest house, Lily's laughter mingled with another voice. Her therapist, Dr. Rivera, who came 3 times a week for play therapy sessions. The kidnapping had left its mark on her, manifesting in nightmares and sudden bouts of anxiety, but she was healing steadily. Children truly were resilient, especially when surrounded by support and given the tools to process their experiences. Jack's phone buzzed with a notification. A new headline from the Miami Herald: Nexus Securities CEO Thomas Blackwood denied bail in Wells murder case. The trial preparations had dominated the news cycle for months, each revelation more shocking than the last. The evidence Michael had gathered, combined with the recording of Blackwood's confession, had unleashed a cascade of investigations, resignations, and indictments that reached the highest levels of government. Catherine had been at the center of it all, testifying before congressional committees, working with prosecutors, and simultaneously steering Wells Technologies through the crisis. The company had emerged stronger, its stock initially plummeting, but then rebounding as Catherine implemented sweeping ethical reforms and redirected the company's considerable resources toward privacy protection and anti-surveillance technologies. Jack hadn't seen her in person since she'd left for Washington 6 weeks ago. They spoke regularly by phone, discussions that started about the renovation but inevitably drifted to more personal topics. He'd come to cherish these conversations, learning about the woman behind the billionaire facade, her dry sense of humor, her passion for classical music, her surprising knowledge of carpentry gleaned from watching her grandfather work as a child. He missed her. The realization had crept up on him gradually, becoming impossible to deny. But what future could possibly exist between a tech billionaire reshaping global privacy standards and a single-father contractor from a small Florida town. Lily emerged from the guest house, waving goodbye to Dr. Rivera's departing car. Daddy, Doctor, Mia says I'm doing super good today. She skipped toward him, her pigtails bouncing, a marked contrast to the frightened child who had emerged from the kidnapping. That's great, Lilypad. Jack scooped her up, his heart swelling with gratitude for her recovery. What did you guys talk about today? We talked about brave people. I told her about Miss Catherine and how she saved us from the bad men. Lily's expression grew serious. When is she coming back? You said she'd come back. She's very busy, kiddo. Important people need her help right now. But we need her too, Lily stated with the simple logic of childhood. You're happier when she's here. Jack blinked, surprised by his daughter's perception. Am I? Yup. You smile more. And you hum when you work. I do not hum, he protested, though he wasn't entirely sure she was wrong. Do too. The song from that old movie you like. Jack was saved from further analysis of his unconscious humming by the distinctive sound of helicopter rotors approaching from the east. He looked up, shielding his eyes from the sun, to see a sleek black helicopter bearing the Wells Technologies logo descending toward the estate's helipad. Lily bounced excitedly in his arms. Is that her? Is Miss Catherine back? Looks like it might be, Jack said, trying to ignore the sudden quickening of his pulse. They walked toward the main house, arriving at the helipad just as the helicopter touched down. The door slid open, and Catherine emerged, elegant as ever in a simple linen dress, her platinum hair lifted by the rotor wash. She spotted them immediately, her composed expression warming into a genuine smile. Jack. Lily! She hurried toward them, ducking low beneath the still spinning rotors. I wasn't expecting a welcoming committee. We saw your helicopter, Lily announced, squirming out of Jack's arms to rush forward. To Jack's surprise, Catherine knelt to meet her at eye level, accepting the child's enthusiastic hug without hesitation. And how are you, Miss Lily? I hear you've become quite the artist. I painted the lake and the birds in the sunset. Want to see? I'd love to. Perhaps after I've had a chance to catch up with your father? Jack stepped forward as Lily released Catherine. Welcome back. We weren't expecting you until next week. The congressional hearings ended early. Apparently, providing irrefutable evidence makes for a surprisingly efficient government process. She studied his face, her blue eyes searching. You look well, Jack. So do you. Tired, though, she laughed softly. Is it that obvious? 6 weeks of testifying will do that to a person. They fell into step together, walking toward the guest house with Lily skipping ahead of them, chattering about her artwork and swimming lessons, and the baby alligator she'd named Toothy that occasionally visited the dock. She seems to be doing remarkably well, Catherine observed quietly. The therapy's helping. And being here, Jack gestured to the estate around them. Having space, security, beauty, it's been good for both of us. Thank you. No thanks needed. It's the least I could do. She hesitated, then added, the boathouse looks amazing. You've done exceptional work. Had plenty of time to do it right. Though I'm technically unemployed now, all my other clients gave up waiting for me months ago. Catherine's expression grew serious. Tantamrintin. About that, there's something I'd like to discuss with you, if you have time later. Before Jack could ask what she meant, they reached the guest house, and Lily insisted on giving Catherine the grand tour of her artwork, which now adorned nearly every available wall space. Catherine admired each painting with genuine attention, asking questions and offering thoughtful comments that delighted Lily. Later, after Lily had gone to bed and the lake was bathed in moonlight, Jack and Catherine sat on the dock, a comfortable silence between them. The night air was warm, crickets chirping in the long grass beyond the manicured lawn. I've been thinking about what happens next, Catherine finally said, her voice soft in the darkness. With the trial, with everything, my life, the company, this place, she gestured to the estate around them. For 25 years, finding justice for Michael was my driving purpose. Now that it's happening, I find myself at a crossroads. Jack nodded, understanding perfectly. Hard to move forward when you've been looking back for so long. Exactly. She turned to face him, moonlight silvering her hair. The board wants me to relocate permanently to our headquarters in California. There are compelling business reasons to do so. Jack felt a pang of disappointment, but kept his expression neutral. Sounds like a good opportunity. Perhaps. But I've decided to decline. You have. Catherine stood, moving to the edge of the dock where water lapped gently against the pilings. This place, This lake, it held me prisoner for 25 years. The memories, the trauma, the unanswered questions, they kept me tethered to the past. But now, strangely enough, I feel free here for the first time. She turned back to him, her expression open and vulnerable in a way he'd rarely seen. And I've realized something else these past weeks away. The work you've done here, it's not just about repairing buildings. You've helped heal this place, make it somewhere life can happen again, not just a monument to tragedy. Jack stood to join her at the dock's edge. That was the idea. To make it a home, not a mausoleum. A home, Catherine repeated softly. I haven't had a real home since I was 12 years old. Just houses, apartments, hotel suites, places to exist, not to live. She hesitated, then continued with uncharacteristic uncertainty. I'm planning to split my time between here and the New York office. Make this my primary residence. If that wouldn't complicate things for you and Lily. Jack studied her face, trying to understand what she was really asking. Complicate how? Jack, she took a deep breath. These past months, getting to know you and Lily, watching how you care for her, how you rebuilt this place with such care, it's meant more to me than I can express. But I understand your life is already complicated enough without adding a relationship with someone like me to the mix. The word relationship hung in the air between them, fraught with possibility. Someone like you, Jack repeated quietly. Hina. You know what I mean. My life, my position, the public scrutiny that follows me everywhere. It's not something most people would choose to step into. Jack moved closer, the distance between them now just inches. Catherine Wells, are you trying to talk me out of something I haven't even tried yet? A smile tugged at her lips. Perhaps I'm just being practical. Practical, Jack echoed, reaching out to brush a strand of hair from her face. Like diving into alligator-infested water to save a stranger? Or trading yourself for a kidnapped little girl? That kind of practical? That was different, she protested softly. Was it? His hand lingered at her cheek. You know what I've learned these past months? That the differences between us, money, background, all of it, they don't matter nearly as much as what we share. And what's that? Courage, persistence, a stubborn refusal to let fear make our decisions, he smiled. And apparently, according to my daughter, I hum when you're around. Catherine laughed, the sound bright in the night air. You hum, so I'm told. Old movie tunes. I like old movies, she said, leaning slightly into his touch. Good, because I think we should watch some together. You, me, Lily. Popcorn, couch, the whole normal family experience. Normal? Catherine tested the word as if it were unfamiliar. I'd like that. Jack closed the remaining distance between them, his lips meeting hers in a kiss that felt like both an ending and a beginning. Catherine responded with a tenderness that belied her usual composure, her hands coming to rest against his chest. When they parted, she looked up at him with wonder. I didn't plan for this, you know. For you. Best things in life are unplanned, Jack replied, drawing her closer. Like taking a different fishing spot one afternoon and hearing a scream across the water. Above them, a shooting star traced a brilliant arc across the night sky, its reflection rippling in the dark waters of Lake Okeechobee. Somewhere in those depths lay the remains of old secrets and sorrows, now powerless against the promise of what was to come. What now? Catherine whispered against his shoulder. Jack smiled, holding her in the moonlight, the rebuilt boathouse a testament to transformation behind them. Now we go forward, together. In her bedroom window of the guest house, Lily watched the two figures on the dock with sleepy satisfaction before crawling back under her covers. She'd been right about Ms. Catherine belonging with them. Adults sometimes needed help figuring out the important things, but that was okay. They got there eventually. As she drifted back to sleep, Lily thought about her new painting plans for tomorrow. The lake, the boathouse, and three figures standing together in the sunshine. A real family, just like she'd wished for.